Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Big Intentions podcast. I'm your host, Iralyn, and we're continuing the self-mastery series in today's podcast episode. So we're entering part 2 of the series, self-discipline. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I would love if you would like, comment, subscribe, do all the things on YouTube. And if you're listening to this, please leave a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple. That really helps grow the podcast. So let's just jump right into it this week. If you're wondering, I'm drinking out of a cowboy boot, which is representative of my weekend at Railbird. I'm drinking an iced coffee and it's definitely like 7 p.m. right now. But thankfully it's summer, so the lighting's good if you're watching this. ASMR, but I really need this coffee bad, so don't judge me. Also, I feel like caffeine doesn't even have an effect on me. Like, I'm going to be fine. So if you're worried about my sanity tonight, if I'm going to get any sleep, no, like, I don't even think caffeine affects me like that. So it's fine. So let's jump into the segments, living out loud. And there's so much to catch up on. But basically, I was out of town last weekend. I took PTO. We did the whole thing. Me and my boyfriend, Spencer, we went back to Kentucky, which is where I'm from. We went to Railbird, which is a music festival in Lexington, Kentucky. Basically, Railbird is at this horse track called Red Mile, and like the festival is like in the infield at Red Mile. So apparently there were like 40,000 tickets sold, but this is like at the festival. I heard this. Somebody was like, yeah, they oversold the tickets by 15,000. So there were 55,000 people there. So like, I don't really know what the actual facts are on that, but there were a lot of people there. Like, I can't confirm. And I kept seeing people post like after the fact that they were there. And I was like, oh my gosh, like so many people I knew were there. Didn't even see them. Even people I knew were there and I was actively trying to meet up with, there was no service here. So there was just no way to find anybody. So the service part of it sucked. Everything else logistically about this festival was great. And it also made me realize that would be such a fun job, like as an industrial engineer, to do the logistics of like festivals. Anyways, side note. But basically, let me just give you a rundown of my weekend in case you care. If you don't, just skip ahead to the next segment. But basically, it was like an indie folk music kind of concert, festival, whatever. But basically, flew into Louisville Thursday. My parents picked us up. We did the whole thing. I don't know what I'm saying. We did the whole thing. We drove 3 hours. I guess that's the whole thing I'm referring to. But while we were in Louisville, had Wild Eggs, which Wild Eggs is slowly going downhill. But had Heine Brothers Coffee, which is becoming my favorite coffee place. Obviously, I can't get it in Dallas, but every time I'm in Kentucky or in Louisville specifically, that's where they have the Heine Brothers. I go there. Peyton Polson, that's my friend, shout out. She really put me back on the Heine Brothers kick because I literally hated it during college when I lived there. Like, I was not about it. But now I'm about it. And if you're wondering my order there, I get the Midnight Mocha and the chocolate banana muffin warm, and it's so good and it's just such a dream. So shout out to Peyton for putting me back on the grind of Heine Brothers. And yeah, so we just spent Thursday and Friday at my parents' house and it was chill. We were by the pool, we were reading, we did some workouts, I posted a vlog. But yeah, it was so fun. Like spending time with family. Then Friday we headed to Lexington and we stayed with one of my friends there for the Railbird Festival. But Friday night we got dinner at Corte Lima, which is like a Peruvian casual spot in Lexington. And if you haven't been there and you like have access to Lexington or you go there a lot, like you should definitely go. It's so good. But yeah, that was kind of like that part of it. And then the actual festival. So day one, we got there like around 2. I think it opened around 12. And we saw Jenny Lewis, Marcus Mumford, which is like the Mumford & Sons guy, Zach Bryan, and he was my favorite part of the festival, like my favorite performer. He's a really good performer. He really does like some fun stuff in his set. And yeah, we pretty much staked out good spots at the main stage for him, and we got pretty good like spots there. So that was good. And just honestly really loved his performance. I would say day one was so fun. And also I love a fiddle player. Like, oh my gosh, I wish I was musically inclined, like in the least bit. like, I even get embarrassed singing too loud because that's just how bad I am at, like, music stuff. Like, I don't know anything about it, but it's so intriguing to me. And, like, performers, just the whole, like, songwriting, everything about it. I'm like, wow, these people are truly so talented. And, like, their personality has to shine so hard on stage. Like, it's such an art, and I just really respect people who do that. But that was day one. Loved that. Day two was way more chill. We went to the stage that was like more shaded, like it had like a cover, and there were like huge fans, and that was really the vibe because most of the people we wanted to see were at that stage, and we just brought a blanket this day, sat out. It was only a 2-day festival, so we saw Cole Chaney, Town Mountain, Tyler Childers, and The Head and the Heart, which was cool. So it was kind of like indie and folk, which I liked, and it was a fun mix of people there too. So yeah, I would say altogether it was a success. I had heard some like bad things about Railbird in the past. Some of the previous festivals like didn't go so hot. So the trip and all was good. Yeah, and I just think it's fun. Like, it was a good start to my summer. I felt like starting it with a trip, it was like, okay, now it's summer. Now I'm like in the summer vibe, and now I have all these plans for summer. Not like huge plans, but like I want to make a summer playlist. I want to make some goals for the summer, you know? If you're interested in seeing like a summer bucket list type of episode or something like summery vibes like that, let me know, because I think that'd be fun to do. In terms of content recs, so I've just been listening to like all the artists that were there at that festival, and then also this was part of my intention for last week, but I finished the Ballad of the Songbirds and Snakes, which is the prequel to the Hunger Games series, and it wasn't the storyline that I like expected. Like, I don't read the cover of books, like the little like description, like summary of them. I just go in blind because I think that's more fun. But basically, it was so good. It was better than I could have ever dreamed or expected for the prequel. Like, I didn't know what it was going to be at all, and I gave it a 5 on Goodreads. Also, follow me on Goodreads if you don't. So you can stay up to date, like, in real time. Like, you can see literally what page I'm on, because I update that thing all the time. I'm like, okay, just finished a chapter, like 10 minutes later, updating my Goodreads, like what page I'm on, because I'm obsessed with it. It's like the best form of social media. Also, I watched A Man Called Otto on Netflix, which it's not necessarily a rec, it's just like a statement. Like, I watched it, like I didn't really like love it. It has Tom Hanks in it, like that's pretty good, but it was so predictable, honestly, so it was okay. But anyways, next book I'm gonna read, I don't know, but it has to be something summery and light and get me in the mood for summer for sure. So I will keep you guys updated on that. The next segment, intentional living. So checking in on my intention for last week, which was to be fully present in the moment in front of me and also to finish that book. And I would say that I was very present on the trip, almost a little too present, because I was so ingrained in my book. I was so consumed by this book. Like, I really was trying to finish the whole book in the trip, and I did finish it, but this feels like cheating to me. Like, I know this is going to stir up some debate for sure, but like, I don't really consider listening to audiobooks reading the book. Like, I know like that's going to like cause some drama, but so, like, I read, like, this book was 517 pages, you know, that's a lot. And so I read 400 of the pages, and then, because I got the physical book from the library where my parents live, so I couldn't take it with me on the plane, so I was really trying to get through this book on this trip, and I just couldn't get all the way through, so the last 120 pages or whatever, I did have to listen to an audiobook on the plane ride home. And I was trying to be so present listening to that book because I really felt like I was cheating. And, like, that's just the rule follower in me. Like, I really am a stickler. Like, I really hate breaking rules. Like, it feels so wrong to me to listen to the book and say I read the book. But I did read, like, literally 70% of the book and listen to the last little bit. So don't come for me in the comments, please. Or you can. Like, that's better engagement for me. Anyways, so My intention for this week, honestly, is just get my life back together. And in doing that, I also want to have fun because I have a friend coming into town and I just want to like be in the moment again, be present, be fun, just kind of have a balance when it comes to my life, getting back on my routine. So it's my like first day back, work and everything. I did all that today, did my routine stuff. So that was good. So I feel like I'm like slowly getting back on track. Like I got groceries today because I wanted to not keep eating out because I ate out a lot over the trip. So basically balance is the intention for this week. So we'll just kind of play it by ear. We're still playing catch up on everything. So it's fine. But next segment, words to live by, and it's like kind of getting dark on me. I hope that the lighting's okay. It looks okay on the screen, so hopefully it'll hold out for me. But it was like fine and sunny, and it's like it is 7 p.m. though, so whatever, we'll see how this lighting goes. But right now I think it's fine. I don't have any lights on in my room because they're not really that good. Anyways, words to live by. So the quote for this week is by Bobby Knight. I feel like that's a basketball guy. I'm not really sure. I'm pretty sure it's a coach. Don't quote me on that. Anyways, Bobby Knight quote, it goes, "It's not about having the will to win. It's about having the will to prepare to win." And I feel like this quote is a great piece of wisdom for this episode, and it really lines up with the topic of self-discipline because honestly, it's all about the journey. And you know, I don't remember where I heard this, but it was like talking about, you know, people will prepare to win the Super Bowl or, you know, the gold medal or whatever. And then it's like you win it, it's over. You just start training again for the next thing. So the majority of the time, you're not actually winning the thing or getting the thing, succeeding. You're really in the journey, in the grind. And it's really having the will to prepare for the journey, to do all of the hard stuff that comes with the success. That's what you have to have the will to do. The will to win, like, yeah, sure, everybody wants to win, but it really comes down to, are you willing to put in the work and grind it out? So that's kind of like the quote to live by, and it kind of just leads into the topic smoothly, which is self-discipline. So that's part 2 of the self-mastery series, and let's just get right into it. So self-discipline is the ability to control one's feelings and overcome one's weaknesses, the ability to pursue what one thinks is right despite temptations to abandon it. So self-discipline is one of the many pillars of self-mastery, and I personally believe that it's the most important pillar of self-mastery. And today's podcast episode, I want to give you guys a breakdown of self-discipline, help you to understand it, define the building blocks of self-discipline, some strategies to implement and strengthen your self-discipline, some personal anecdotes of like how I've implemented it into my life, and then some challenges that you might face, how to overcome those, and yeah, wrap it all up nice, give it to you in a pretty little bow. So self-discipline is essential to self-mastery, and as a reminder of what self-mastery is, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, I really spent most of the time breaking down self-mastery and then kind of talked about self-awareness a little bit in that. But self-mastery is the ability to control yourself in all situations and move forward consciously and steadily towards your goals. So self-discipline falls under one of the many pillars of self-mastery, and self-discipline allows you to stay focused on your goals and habits that lead you to becoming your higher self. So I truly believe that self-discipline is the key to success, and it allows you to be in control of yourself, work towards your goals, habits, and dreams. And self-discipline can build your confidence and self-esteem as well. So that's kind of some of the benefits involved in strengthening your self-discipline. And it's really a foundational skill that must be developed for success and achieving your dreams and your goals. So to clarify the difference between self-discipline and motivation, because I feel like these things are kind of intertwined a lot and used almost sometimes interchangeably when they shouldn't be, because, you know, you hear a lot of people say, oh, I don't have the motivation to do that. But it's really, you don't have the self-discipline to do something, to be dedicated to this thing. You know, you might say like, I'm not motivated to work out every day, but it's really, motivation shouldn't be the foundation upon your habits and routines you build. It really should be self-discipline. Because motivation is fleeting, and self-discipline is something that is developed, and it allows you to create structures and systems in your life that set you up for success, regardless of the way you feel, of your, you know, the way you feel or how motivated you are to do something. And self-discipline is not fleeting. It's something that, built upon with consistency, can be ingrained in your life and can become part of your identity. So again, self-discipline is the ability to control and regulate one's actions, emotions, and habits in order to achieve a desired outcome. Making conscious choices and consistently adhering to them, regardless of your feelings or outside distractions. Motivation, on the other hand, is the internal or external drive that initiates, directs, or sustains our behavior towards a specific goal. It's the enthusiasm, desire, or reason that propels us to action. So self-discipline is more of a long-term trait or habit that can be cultivated through consistency, whereas motivation is more of a short-term solution that can fluctuate over time. Self-discipline is developing your character and building characteristics in a way that builds characteristics in you, such as consistency, focus, and commitment. And motivation generates enthusiasm, excitement, and it's more of that short fuse. So I kind of look at these like a visualization for you would be self-discipline would be, both of the things have a fireplace, but self-discipline, it has this huge propane tank that is fueling it, giving it the gas, giving it the energy for the fire. And I see motivation as more of like the small lighter that you're using to start this fire. And to me, I see motivation as that quick, cheap solution that it doesn't burn long. Your fire won't be sustainable when you're just using the small lighter. You know, you're going to run out of gas way quicker than with self-discipline, which is this huge tank. You know, maybe there was a bigger investment to get this huge tank of gas, but you have the ability to refuel it, and it's going to last longer and sustain you longer, and it's more of that long-term solution. And not that I really want to pit motivation and self-discipline against each other, because I don't think motivation is a bad thing, but it likely won't sustain you during the journey and along the road to your dreams and success. Self-discipline and motivation are interconnected and complementary. While self-discipline provides the structure, consistency, and resilience needed to overcome obstacles and persevere, motivation provides the initial spark and energy to get started. So I think you can look at it like, you know, you are unsatisfied with the way that you look or the way that you feel. So you have this motivation, you have this drive, you're like, I want to get fit, I want to get in shape, I want to feel good about my body. You know, the motivation could be there, and that's what initially gets you on this thing, on this topic, on this journey. But self-discipline is what will sustain you on that journey and take you along the road to success and take you to your ultimate destination. And so I don't think motivation is a bad thing, but I think that, you know, really motivation does not sustain you. It's self-discipline that is like the foundation of your goals and your dreams and your success that you're going to have. It all starts with your self-discipline. So, I think that kind of leads into the next topic of the building blocks of self-discipline. And there's a quote by Napoleon Hill, and it goes, "Self-discipline begins with mastering your thoughts. If you can't control what you think, you can't control what you do." So I feel like this quote really just ties back into my whole episode on choice and belief. And I would recommend going back and listening to that to identify your core beliefs, your limiting beliefs, and how they play into the choices that you make. Because I do believe that your thoughts are ultimately lead you to your destiny. So that would be a good practice to go back, listen to that, and to identify those beliefs, and then come back to this when it comes to self-discipline, because there are definitely building blocks to self-mastery, and self-discipline being one of those. And all of these topics are going to ultimately kind of tie back together, because it's just about improving who you are, improving yourself, developing your skill set. So I would recommend that. But I think it will help you to identify those core beliefs, because it will help you to clear up your intentions for who your higher self is, which is ultimately one of the fundamental pieces of this self-discipline thing. So I could expand upon all of these in greater detail, but we're just going to kind of give a brief overview in this episode of these building blocks of self-discipline. So starting out strong, clarity of goals. So defining your goals and objectives, understanding your intentions, and to understand your intentions, you kind of need to understand what your highest self looks like. So going through that higher self passage, as I've discussed before, is a really good place to start. Understanding your intentions behind your dreams, your core beliefs, your values, that can ultimately give you that bigger picture of your higher self. And it really allows you to define the why behind what you're doing. And if you have a why, then it gives you a sense of purpose and direction, and that will fuel the self-discipline. And that's really one of the key building blocks of self-discipline, is being clear and being specific, like going through the higher self passage, writing down specifics of who you want to be, how you want to feel. Those are all really good on setting your intention and setting your purpose of who you want to be, and ultimately leads you to self-discipline and leads you to becoming your higher self. So that's all kind of intertwined. So another building block of self-discipline is commitment and determination. Focusing on the long-term benefits of the work you're putting in now. So I saw the quote by Brian Tracy that I think is a really good tie-in here. The ability to discipline yourself to delay gratification in the short term in order to enjoy greater rewards in the long term is the indispensable prerequisite for success. So, and there were a lot of other quotes of like, self-discipline is denying yourself the gratification now, but ultimately it's leading you to the rewards of the long-term benefits of your self-discipline. So like, instant gratification would be sleeping in and getting more sleep, depending on how much sleep. So like 8 hours versus 9 hours, that's what I'm talking about here. But like, if you're doing that, that's instant gratification. Whereas if you're delaying that instant gratification and you're getting 7 hours of sleep, 2 extra hours of your day, you are dedicating to these habits and routines in the morning that are bettering yourself, helping you to become your higher self. Ultimately those are going to pay off, and those benefits in the long term are going to really, you're going to see the fruits of your labor finally paying off in the results. So kind of like to give this like a finance kind of vibe, throw it back on finance, but like investing, it's like you're delaying yourself the instant gratification of maybe like, I don't know, a new whatever, a t-shirt, whatever you want, new sweatshirt, whatever it may be. Oh my gosh, I'm about to spill my coffee. And then instead of, satisfying yourself now, you're taking that money, you're investing it, and in the long term, that $20 is now $500 or whatever it is, because you've invested it and it's compounded. And that's kind of how I like to see self-discipline. It's like investing in yourself. So these little habits that you're implementing now compound and lead you to this higher version of yourself. So when it comes to commitment and determination, really focusing on, I'm committed to this, like make a list, even if you want to, like the things that you're denying yourself now, but you're investing in these other things and what those paybacks will be later. Because the instant gratification, like social media or indulging in sweets or whatever it is, in whatever case that you're applying self-discipline, you can look at it and see the long-term effects, and that will ultimately give you maybe more commitment or determination to applying self-discipline to your life. So another area is self-awareness, which that was part 1 of the self-mastery series. So if you want to go back and listen to last week's episode, then you can get a more in-depth discussion on self-awareness and how to actually implement it and strategies to apply it to your life. So recommend that. But self-awareness is key. It kind of goes back to the quote about mastering your thoughts. Being self-aware, understanding your why, that's really key in building your self-discipline, strengthening it. Another area or key fundamental of self-discipline is consistent habits and routines, and establishing habits and routines that support your dreams and goals. That's really what we're talking about here. Consistency breeds discipline. If you do something enough times, it becomes second nature. No motivation will be required. You just do it because it's ingrained in you, and you've cultivated this discipline in your life. And when you set up routines and habits in your life, you reduce the need for decision making, and you automatically end up performing the basics that lead you to your highest self. So I saw recently, I was listening to the Tori DeSimone podcast, and she was talking about the best don't get bored of the basics, which is a Kobe Bryant quote, I'm pretty sure. They were also talking about it on the Skinny Confidential recently. But she was discussing different habits and basics of her life and how essential they are to her success. And this really ties into self-discipline and some of the basics of your life that become your habits. And you do these things without fail, regardless of if you want to or not. You're disciplined to do these basics day after day, and you don't get bored of them. And it's what sustains you. There's a dog barking. I hope you guys can't hear that. Yeah, so the discipline to do the basics day after day and not get bored is what it sustains you through self-discipline. And, if Kobe Bryant said it, it's probably legit, because he was one of the greats. So basically, consistent habits and routines, that is one of the key foundations of self-discipline. Another one, and it kind of ties into it, is time management and prioritization. So creating routines and time blocking is an effective way to do this. So my episode titled Controlled Chaos is a great listen on this topic. I kind of go into routines and how routines and structures that you implement in your life can really set you up for success. And that is one of the key pieces to self-discipline. Another fundamental will be focus and concentration. So eliminating distractions and training yourself to stay focused on the task at hand. So different ways that I implement this into my self-discipline practice is I have my phone on Do Not Disturb. So from like 9 p.m. to 7 a.m., my phone's on Do Not Disturb. Like, of course I can get text messages and check them if I need to, but really that's time I set aside for me. And honestly, like, if somebody calls you, you do not have to answer the phone. Like, I know people always feel, myself included, like I feel like I have to answer. And it's like, if I'm doing something that is one of my non-negotiables of the day, I'm in the middle of a task, why do I need to stop everything I'm doing for someone else? Like, unless it's an emergency or whatever, but most of the time it's not, If you want to be self-disciplined, you have to rid your life of distraction. And not that you can't have fun and you can't relax and let go, but if you're in the middle of something, like, be in the middle of it. And I just think that it's easy with our phones. We can get really distracted and put other priorities ahead of our own. But if you want to stay disciplined, then, find ways that you can focus and concentrate on the task at hand, the things that you want to, use, routines that you're using, habits that you're using to build your self-discipline to become your highest self. Really make those a priority. And, if somebody says, like, hey, I was trying to get a hold of you, just be like, was on focus mode from 9 to 5, whatever, like grinding it out, like in the lab. I heard Brooke Michio talk about that in her podcast. She was like, in the lab, or I don't know if it was podcast, but I think that's so funny. Like, if somebody's trying to say something to you, just be like, sorry, in the lab, like doing big things, I'm going to start doing that because I think that's so funny. And let me stop this and start a new recording. So my camera cuts off at like 30 minutes, so I have to like kind of keep an eye on that. Wow, this is going to be a long, chatty episode, and I love that because I've been trying to have a long, chatty episode, and I don't know what happened, but I just haven't lately. So this is I love a long podcast. So another fundamental of self-discipline is accountability. So I think having some different accountability systems in place, whether that's people, habit trackers, a to-do list, whatever that looks like for you, and whatever is actually effective. Like, if telling someone about your goals doesn't keep you accountable, like, don't tell them. Do something else that will actually hold you accountable. Like, for me, I like a to-do list where I check off the things. That's something that's effective. Or like just the habit trackers, that's an app, Don't Break the Chain. You like physically click the day with an X and like track your habits. That's effective for me. Sometimes telling people is effective. Sometimes I just talk and like I don't, unless someone's actually holding you accountable. But if someone's just like, oh yeah, cool, like, whatever works for you, accountability partners are cool. Sometimes that's good for like a workout class. If you're like, oh, I told my friend like I'm gonna meet her at this workout class, like I gotta go now. Stuff like that is good, but that's really fundamental to be accountable. And also self-confidence. I think I mentioned this, it's Ed Milet quote, but like the way that you build self-confidence is keeping promises to yourself. So ultimately that just means having self-discipline, and that is really fundamental key part of self-discipline. Another fundamental is resilience and perseverance. So this one is one that I'm definitely still trying to kind of grow and strengthen in, because I definitely find that sometimes setbacks can really throw me off mentally, and it really truly consistency is key. And if it's something that you really want, you have to persevere and keep going and keeping at it if you want to see the results of it, because anything that is worth having is hard. Like, I'm sure you all have heard that, but it is true. So if you really want something, you just have to keep going after it and being resilient and persevering through these setbacks, which I'll talk to some of the challenges that you might face and like how to overcome those challenges. And really, all in all, I think those are the fundamentals of self-discipline, and these are all topics like you could go in depth on, and they could be their own podcast episodes on their own, but just kind of wanted to give you a highlight, some things to keep in mind. So for some strategies for strengthening your self-discipline, one, I think affirmations, as I've mentioned so many times on this podcast, are a great avenue for strengthening your self-discipline, really affirming in yourself, and even visualizing, like writing it down, that these are things that you can actually accomplish is very helpful. There's a lot of power in affirmations. Another one is building habits gradually. So it's one thing to have this goal in mind and then to start out and have like 100 things that you want to do, but you have to build your habits, start small and build them, and don't rush yourself. Like, it's better to have one habit implemented than like starting 1,000 little things and never accomplishing them, never actually having those things become habits. So I would say, work on one thing at a time and start off small. Like, I think I've mentioned this before, but if you want to read 50 books in the year, that's overwhelming. But if you break it down, like I need to read 10 pages of nonfiction every day and do an hour of fiction reading, whatever it might be. If you break it down like that, it's way more actionable. You can implement routines and habits in your day-to-day that will help you accomplish that goal. So starting out small, I highly recommend. I need to drink water. I feel like my eyes twitching, and that's a sign that I'm dehydrated. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing some challenges that you may face. So procrastination, the act of delaying or avoiding tasks that require effort or discomfort. And I'm sure that you guys are all familiar with this, especially when it comes to like homework. Everyone's like, oh, I procrastinated my homework. I did it at the last minute. And it's really easy trap to fall into. And One way to overcome this challenge is to understand why you're procrastinating. Addressing the underlying cause can help you to identify them more effectively and to overcome the procrastination. So that could be something like fear, perfectionism, or just the feeling of being overwhelmed. And so, another way to overcome this challenge is to break down the task into smaller, more manageable tasks that makes it less intimidating and easier to start. Another way would be to set clear goals and deadlines for your task, making them more tangible and a clear path for your efforts. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique. So basically, it's where you set a period of time that you're going to work and then you take a short break and then you kind of repeat that and alternate that. That's effective. I like to use that when I work. So setting clear goals is really, that kind of goes back to the building block of it, but also setting deadlines for your task. That's a good way to overcome procrastination. Developing a reward system is another way that provides incentive for completing tasks. So treating yourself to something enjoyable or taking a short break to do something after you've achieved a certain milestone. So I've actually done this on kind of a larger scale, but whenever I would lose like 10 pounds, that was like, okay, that signifies a reward. Now I can spend $100 on new clothes because I can't fit into my old clothes anymore. Or for spin, like after I did my first 50 rides, I was like, I really want these spin shoes, but I have to, justify that. So I was like, well, if I get to 50 or 100 rides, I can get either a new workout set or a new pair of spin shoes. And I think having a reward system like that, it builds the consistency and it allows you to get to a certain milestone so you can see that you are capable of achieving results, and then you reward yourself so you're more inclined to keep going and keep pushing forward. So another challenge you may face is instant gratification, which we talked about earlier, but the desire for immediate gratification can undermine self-discipline, and it's tempting to choose short-term pleasures or distractions over the long-term goals, and this can manifest in seeking immediate comfort, indulging in distractions, and giving into different cravings. So really kind of just going back to the fundamental of the focus and commitment and using that as your way to overcome this challenge. If you write out the pros and cons list of the immediate gratification of something versus the long-term benefits of your goals, you can really easily see that obviously the long-term goals and benefits are going to be way more rewarding in the end. And then another challenge you may face is a lack of structure and routine. And this can be difficult to establish and maintain self-discipline if you don't have any structures or routines in your life. And that's why habit forming and habit creation and routines are so important in self-discipline. And without a clear plan or daily habits, it's easy to drift aimlessly and lose focus of your long-term goals. So yes, you can have these big dreams for yourself, but if you're not implementing things in the day-to-day, it's going to be way harder to achieve those goals because you're not actually being disciplined and putting in the work that's going to take you to your higher self. So those are some different challenges and some different ways to kind of address those challenges. But I kind of wanted to just share with you all some areas of my life that I introduced self-discipline in, and I found that it's an effective skill to have, and by doing so, I've actually seen results. And if you stay consistent with something, it proves so true that consistency is key and that it really does breed discipline. So, for example, my YouTube channel, it's something that I've had for a long time, and I would randomly vlog, but it would be like I would vlog, but then I wouldn't edit. And it's just something that I always really wanted to pour my energy into. And I think that it's something that I really want to prioritize and focus on. So I implemented self-discipline in this area. And I've definitely seen some growth in my channel, and it's kind of hard to grow on YouTube. Like, it's way easier to grow on TikTok, but I just really like YouTube, so I wanted to pursue it. Anyways, So I developed a posting schedule and started using a social media planning tool called Rella, which I actually love this tool. It's really good for planning for me. So Rella allows me the ability to create the tasks, schedule them, and then plan ahead. And this strategy, along with consistently filming and posting, has allowed me to see growth. So it's like second nature for me now to film, edit, and post my videos. And it really just took one, defining why I wanted to do it, setting some specific goals around this, creating routines and habits in my day to day, creating a plan and a vision for this goal, and then implementing that goal, being accountable. My brother would always be like, you cannot consistently post on YouTube. And I was like, yes, I can, but I wasn't, but I can, but I just didn't have the discipline to do it. And if you set up structures in your life that allow you to do it, so it's like, okay, I'm going to post every Tuesday and Saturday. Well, that means you need to film something on the weekend and something during the week. Pick a day to edit both of those videos, post them, do the things. And then whenever you get in the habit of, okay, these are all the tasks I have to do for my YouTube video. I have to film it. I have to import the footage. I have to edit it. I have to create the thumbnail, the description. I have to export the footage. I have to upload it to YouTube. I have to promo my video. Those things become just habits and routines, part of my checklist. But the way to sustain, like, why are you doing all of this work? Like, this is not your job. Like, why are you doing this? Okay, I do want to have a successful YouTube video or YouTube channel. I do want to share my personal experience with people. Like, those are my whys. So that is what sustains me through it. But I think that you have to have all these different foundations of self-discipline to actually be successful and to see growth in your channel or your goal or whatever it may be. So that's just one personal anecdote that I wanted to share with you all when it comes to self-discipline and how I've actually seen results in it. And I feel like even if like my channel isn't huge or whatever, I'm proud of myself for actually sticking to something, being consistent with something, and creating content that I would like to see, promoting, things that are important to me. And that's just something that, it doesn't matter how small it is or whatever if you don't see the results immediately. But if you just stick with something, like, I'm way more confident now because I've consistently been doing something, and it's just built my self-confidence in, the process. So that's one thing I wanted to share. I was going to share another thing about like my health and wellness and all that, but I feel like this podcast is getting so chatty. So that can be saved for another time. But I really hope that my personal account is proof enough that if you implement self-discipline, it can lead to actual results and prove effective in your life and to prove effective in becoming your highest self. And I hope that the understanding self-discipline, talking through the building blocks of self-discipline, as well as sharing different ways to overcome challenges has proved helpful to you. And I'm excited to continue my self-development or self-discipline journey rather, and to just keep practicing it and implementing it into new areas in my life. And if you gain something from this episode, please leave a comment or a like on this YouTube video, share with me, and maybe in the comments areas that you've implemented self-discipline or want to implement it. And if you're listening, please leave a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And I love you guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.